And we're back.
Yep, got my coffee. So,
Very good. Yeah, you got what is the Andrew Huberman thing? You got to wait 90 minutes before you drink your coffee because
yep, because
yeah.
he's my favorite person on the planet. I love that
Oh,
guy.
really? Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm joking.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd follow everything he does. I walk outside, get my
yeah.
sunlight.
You have your
Uh,
5 hour morning routine before you can start working to optimize your productivity.
yep.
Yeah.
He's got some, man, he's got some interesting stuff. He did like the David Goggins one. And it was funny because he tried to make it like a conversation of like how to optimize your mental fortitude.
Oh,
But it's like David just like takes it into a whole nother realm of like, yeah, I mean, I'm just different than you.
yeah.
Like he's like, I have no education. I don't have any, like I couldn't even read or write, but I wrote a book. And then I
Yeah.
also did all these other like it's interesting because it's like a very hard clash of like what's the formula? What's the science formula of like how you do this?
Yeah.
How did you become this person? And Dave's just like, yeah, just like kind of just says screw all that. So
Yeah,
it's
I
like
mean, he just decides to do it. He's not like sunning his perineum before he goes and, like runs 40 miles. So,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that would be an interesting one to listen to because you're right that they seem so ideologically opposed,
He
you know.
tries to ask these questions of like trying to get it out of him of like what finding some sort of like this is the way you did it when it's just not like that.
I know that you did a lot of mountain biking growing up.
Yeah.
So you weren't necessarily involved in strength sports until
Mm-mm.
maybe college. So what did that look like for you, kind of your athletic background as a kid?
Yeah. So growing up as a kid, my parents always had me doing some sports. I think the first sport I played was like soccer, like kindergarten. I was very fortunate that my parents always wanted to put me in a sport and wanted to pay for that. And I think they found it was important for me to like have it as like a social thing more so than it was important fitness wise, but um I think it was like they really looked at it as like important for me to have it like socially as well. And I think it is super important to understand what it's like to be on like a team sport. Um, so I played soccer and then I like was obsessed with tackle football because my brother, I have a half brother who's 11 years older than me. Um, I was like in when I was like in first grade, um, second grade, he played tackle football. Um, and he played for his high school. And he was like this big hot, like kind of like a hot shot, like homecoming king,
Okay. Yeah.
like I and it's just a thing you have when you're like that much younger than your brother. It's like anything they do, they're so cool.
Yeah.
Like I used to, yeah, I would look at him as like a little kid and be like, man, this is so cool. Like he's uh he's like playing football. He's got these girls, like he's got the all this stuff. It's like I'm a little second grader and I'm like, I want to be just like him. So I started getting really into tackle football. My my parents weren't so fond of it. Um, but actually I shouldn't say that they weren't fond of it because they had my mom, so he's a half brother. We have different dads. He had played tackle football since second grade all the way through high school. So as young as you can start. So I wanted to be on like the same track. So I started in second grade. I played pee wee football. I remember I played flag football for like 1 year before, and then I played pee wee. That was pretty fundamental, like, time of like learning discipline. because it was like pretty brutal. I mean, I was very, very, very skinny kid. Like could see my ribs and like very much on the small side of the team, even for like second graders. I was
Yeah.
like very small. Um, and not with the whole pack of kids. Like it was a big team, and I just was like much more of like an outsider to the group. But my dad really tried to instill in me like you have to be there every day. Like never miss a practice, you know. Um, you cannot miss practice. And that was a big thing for the coaches as well. It's like just show up. Just show up, right? If it's pouring rain, just show up. We're not going to leave unless the lightning alarms sound, kind of thing. We'll do something, right? Even if like, we get to the field and maybe they're doing work on it. They're like, "Oh, we're going to go somewhere else and find something else to do." But it was about showing up. That was like the main message for me with football that I learned. I ended up playing for like 2 years. Second year I quit. I hated it the second year. I loved it the
Yeah.
first year. It was the most dreadful thing the second year, mainly because of just like the coaching. The second year was like all over the place. You had just really, it was very poor quality of coaching where it was like a little overkill. Like you have these grown it's like grown guy from the Navy just like yelling at elementary school kids, like brutally yelling at them. And it was like, oh, this is not fun. There's like a good balance to it that was achieved in the first year I did it. And I remember I didn't play a single game. Like I showed up to practice more than, I had the highest like attendance.
Mhm.
Um, I only played special teams and they would put me like all the way on the outside just to run with the kicker. And I just would like I never got to touch a football in a
Yeah.
game. And my dad and my brother were like, like don't stop trying. Like when you're on the sidelines, be next to the coach and tell him you're ready to go in. Like, oh, can I like annoy him? Like be that kid that's like very eager to play. He's not going to know unless he sees you like that. Like make it an effort to him. Um, and it was definitely like a very formative experience in my youth because I was very quiet. I didn't have any friends on the team. I saw a lot of other kids like just being able to goof off and get whatever they wanted and play all the hours that I wanted to play on the field. And it was like an unfair thing for me, but I just like kept doing it anyway,
Yeah.
right? Because I just like wanted to make a point to myself that like I could stick through a year of doing this. And it's like as a second grader, like this is my first time even reflecting on this as I'm talking
Oh,
about it. I'm like, how the hell did I do that as like a little kid,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, it definitely is like owed to my dad, my mom. Um, I I like my dad was definitely trying to push me to do those things, and not give up. And I remember after the first year, I actually won an award from the team. I won like this little plaque called the 110% award.
Oh, nice. Most hustle kind of
Yeah.
award. Yeah.
And I remember like we were all in a huddle and the coach like said my name and all the kids like looked around, they were like, "Who is that?" Like when
Oh,
I won
wow.
the award. And I just was like standing there. I'm like, what? I was like, how did I? It was like the most unfathomable moment at that time. I was like, that award itself was better than playing the million hours that I wanted to play. Like I felt seen. I felt, like this coach recognized my efforts, which was like a big thing for me because I felt like I worked really, really hard.
Yeah.
Um, and pushed myself outside of my comfort zone. So that award itself was like better than anything, even if nobody on the team knew who I was. But yeah, after that, um, after let's say tackle football, what did I do? Oh, that's when I started playing basketball. So basketball was like the one sport I really, really, really enjoyed. I still enjoy it. Like if there's any sport I could just go outside and play right now, it'd be basketball. I really like it. I like watching it too, although I don't keep up with it much. But again, there was like a common theme with like all these team sports I played was that like I practiced hard. I feel like I practiced harder than anybody. I would practice on my own. With tackle football, that was hard. Of course, there's already enough practice. But with basketball, I mean, it's just about shooting the ball and like having your hands on the ball. You could practice that by yourself a lot. You
Yeah.
know, you could do a lot of practice on your own to get really good at basketball. And I felt like I did that. Like I felt like I practiced very, very hard. I played basketball every day. But then when it came time to game time, I just sucked. I just was so bad. Like I was scared. I was like really scared of getting the ball. I would airball shots. I would just like make a fool of myself.
I deeply identify with this experience, by the way. Former most hustle award for basketball
Really?
because I never made a shot, but I always ran harder than anybody. So yeah, I completely relate to this experience. And yeah, I can see the formation of someone who develops that internal focus of just kind of applying yourself to the best that you can. And that's what's the rewarding thing is, maybe more than getting a double double in the game, you know.
Yeah, man. It's just so frustrating as like a little kid, as like a young, as a young kid. So frustrating because you're putting in the hours and you're I mean, I would like sit there and actually study the game. Like I would like watch hours upon hours of like Dwayne Wade, all my favorite point guards, like Chris Paul. I loved Chris Paul. I would just watch hours of Chris Paul playing. Allen Iverson, like all these point guards that I'm like, I want to be just like them. Um, I'm just watch hours of like D Wade Euro stepping. Like I have to Euro step like this. This is how he Euro steps. And yeah, it was frustrating. It was like I had gone on teams where we'd like go on win a championship and it'd be like so unrewarding. I'm like, dude, I didn't have any, I feel like I had no part in this,
Yeah.
you know. My job was to pass it to the guy who could do it. And that was like a frustrating thing for me with team sports that led me to like not love it. Um, led me to really like not loving it as much. And I loved basketball. And like I remember my brother would always tell me like my brother would like try to keep me in it because he kind of like saw that like I had a lot of potential in it because of how hard I would like work. Like I always wanted to shoot, I always wanted to play. Um and it just was a matter of like me finding a way on a team, like finding my place on the court. And it just like never happened. Like I just like I could like literally put myself in the shoes of like I remember vividly like the air of those moments of just like getting the ball, open shot. Maybe it's like your team is down a couple points and I'd be like, this is my time. And every time I'd falter, every single time. Um, and it's just like such a like it was like the most miserable feeling to like just straight up airball a shot when it's like I practiced this like a million times.
Yeah.
I'm like getting emotional thinking about it right now because it's like holy crap, like I remember how painful those moments would be and like I'd go into my car I my after a game we'd go into the car and it'd just always be like such a painful experience. Like, I'd be crying or trying to hold in tears because I didn't want to cry in front of my for my dad or my parents, but um just be like, man, like this sucks. Like it sucks. But after after basketball, I kind of didn't care about team sports at all. So now we're going into like high school, and I that's where I got into mountain biking.
Okay.
I had a park. I was very fortunate. I had a really good park next to my house that had really well built trails, some of the best built trails in Florida. Especially for the elevation there, there's like no elevation. It's like in a swamp. But these guys were able to form a park that was incredible. Um, and I had a friend that kind of got me into it, and I just like fell in love with it, right?
Yeah.
I really liked nature. Um, I really like just like escaping. That was like a big thing for me. It was like the escapism aspect of just like I'm gonna go into the woods. Like I'm just gonna leave society. Like I was like in my little like teenage angst of just like I'm gonna go do something nobody understands. Like I really
Yeah, well,
wanted.
there's something, it's really, it is important to hold that space for yourself where you're not getting input from a podcast or your phone or even your friends. And I think that, you know, a great way to do that is to move through nature in some way, whether you just go for a hike or something or mountain
Yeah.
biking. And the mountain biking is great because you get caught up in that, I hate this term, but the flow state, where you're very present. Um,
Oh,
and
and I
yeah,
discovered that there. I
yeah,
discovered that um I didn't know what I was feeling when I was going through it, but I discovered that feeling and I was hooked on it like a
yeah.
drug. I would like every single day I'd go and ride. And with the weather where I lived in South Florida, I lived like right on the Everglades. And like in the matter of like 2 minutes, like a thunderstorm can form and you're just like completely rained out. So I would like sometimes be like a race against weather where I could see these clouds forming and I'm like, I know it's about to form, but if I can even just get a lick of a trail, like
Yeah,
I'm gonna go and do it. Even if it's, and I had done it. I'd done it before. I'd go out, I'd ride half a trail like for 5 minutes and I just come back to my car. And the park was close enough to my house that I could bike to it. It was a little bit of a bike, but like when I didn't have a car, I just would bike there.
yeah,
And my parents were just like, make sure you get here before it's dark. So I'd be like, all right. So I'd come back from school, get all my stuff ready, and just go. Um, and I really found myself out on those trails. Like, um, I like the independentness of it. Like I didn't have to listen, like you're saying, like you don't have to listen to anybody. You're doing what you want to do. It's very, very like, loosely use the term meditative, but um it like it like it felt like it fulfilled something in me that I hadn't fulfilled before,
yeah.
like internally, where I was like, oh, like this is great. Um, I'm not like competing against other people to be better than them, to get some time on the court, to do these drills. Like I felt like no pressure.
Mhm.
Um, and I really liked it. And then I started to really like the aspect of it where it's like I could go out there and learn something new every day or like put myself in like I had never been in that position in any other sport where I could like where I felt like I could put myself in danger like
Mm.
voluntarily.
Yeah.
Uh every time like you feel like a hit of a rush in a sport, it's because it's like forced upon you,
Mm.
right? Like maybe not forced upon, well, it is kind of forced upon you, right? Like you don't have control if you're the one that gets the ball with 2 seconds left. Like if someone throws you that ball, like crap, you are now in that fight or flight state. Your coach decides to put you in, you know, on a and tells you like you're gonna take the shot on this like inbound, like oh crap, like I have I have to do that. And now I'm in this fight or flight state. But with mountain biking, it was like I was like, oh, I could choose this. I could
Yeah.
choose to like go up to this jump and I'm gonna be like, okay, like I'm gonna do this, but like I have to control this emotion that I hadn't felt before, where it was like before it was always like pressed upon me and like a really bad thing to
Yeah.
feel. Now it was like something I was like, oh, I'm able to do to to put myself there voluntarily and like use it to my advantage.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I got into like doing jumps and drops and I was doing crap that I look back on and I'm like, that's crazy. I can't even believe
Yeah.
I was doing all these crazy jumps, but it was like so routine to me after a while, but it didn't happen overnight. I mean, it took me like when I started biking, I was not great at it at all. Um, I destroyed a lot of bikes going into getting good, crashed a lot. Progressing on a jump is literally just like anything that takes practice. It's just
Yeah.
doing it over and over. And the only aspect of it that is different than most other sports is like the risk of injury is like very, very high. You know, like if you don't know what
Yeah.
you're doing and you just go high speed into a jump, like you can get fatally hurt. So it was like a balance of like taking my time, learning these things, and then because that park was so close to my house, like I just was there all the time. And yeah, that's like primarily all I did in high school. Um, and I really loved riding. Um, it took over my life, like it consumed my life. That was like the reason I chose to apply to FSU because to me, like in my head, my naive teenage brain, I was like, oh, if I go to FSU, that's like very far from that's the farthest I can go north. Um, with still being in Florida because I needed to be in Florida for scholarship.
Mhm.
I was like, that's the farthest I can go north, and like I can just take trips to Georgia every week to ride my bike, which was like not as easy as I thought it would be.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I literally was like, oh, I could just like live out of my car on the weekends and just ride in Georgia. Um,
Not
but
if
that's
it,
just
not with a chemical engineering major.
yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, it was really because my brother told me that like college would be easier than high school forever. He would tell me that. But he did like business, like some
Yeah.
sort of
Right.
business. And I'm like, this whole time, I'm like, oh man, like college is gonna be awesome. Like I'm gonna have all this time. And like it just was not easier than high
Yeah.
school. But yeah, I did the mountain biking thing for a while. I really enjoyed it. You know, I was like I was like in like that like kind of like I wouldn't say hippie aesthetic at that time, but I was more so of like I didn't care about things very much. It's easy to feel like that as like a teenager when you don't have a worry in the world. Luckily, that was my case because of my parents. In my situation, I know not everybody's situation is like that. And there with those kinds of things, there was always a lot of things I was like repressing that I didn't want to confront.
Mm.
But I just like chose to live a life where I was like not confronting anything. Um, via mountain bike riding and other things. Um, but yeah, just then I got into like so when I graduated high school was when like the pandemic started. So I didn't have a high school graduation. And then like after that, so it's like spring of 2020 to that whole year, 2020,
Yeah.
I was just like I got into skateboarding and I would just like go and skateboard like for hours upon hours
Yeah.
with my friends all day because we didn't like only I didn't work. Only one of my friends was employed, so he worked, but either way, we would like just skateboard all day. And yeah, the common theme with the two was that I really enjoyed sports that like kind of put me on the edge, that like made me be scared. Skateboarding was
Yeah.
super scary. You're
Yeah.
constantly falling. Like every day you come back from like a good skate session, you just feel like you got beat up like really
Oh,
bad.
dude. Yeah.
So you're just like part of it is just falling, learning how to. The biggest thing with skateboarding is like learning how to fall, actually. Um, because you do fall, it's inevitable, but you learn how to fall in ways that you don't hurt yourself as bad. Um, and you learn how to do that really quick, or else you do get hurt really bad. Um, which happened to me. I like broke my ankle like uh within like the first 2 months of me skating, trying to like ollie over a cone
Uh,
in front of the whole like skate park, like where it's like at like peak hours. And I remember I fell and I just like kind of looked up and I just like started getting up immediately and I just couldn't put any pressure on my foot. And I'm like, oh great. I was like kind of looking around to see who would help me. It's like nobody. It's like that's just normal
dude,
there,
yeah, nobody gives you a second glance. Like, if
Yeah.
anything, they're like, hey, man, can you move to the side? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Did you have
ruthless.
experience skateboarding too?
Very limited when I was, when I was like in middle school. But yeah,
Yeah.
get it, like busting your ass like that consistently. I did not. I pretty quickly stopped skating,
Oh yeah.
like at parks and that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I really liked it. Um, I really, really liked it. And when I moved up to FSU, my main okay, wait. Let me go back because I completely went over some of the like what got me into lifting.
Oh,
So in high school, when I started freshman year of high school, I had some like friends that were on the baseball team. Um, one friend in particular, my friend Chris, he was really into fitness and lifting and strength training. Um, he wanted to go, to play in the MLB. He wanted to like
okay.
go to college and play, and he was very on. I mean, this kid was like tracking his macros in like ninth grade, and I'm like, that stuff was like all foreign to me. I didn't even know what a
Yeah,
nutrition label looked like. I didn't even
yeah,
know it existed. I just knew what my parents gave me for dinner or whatever. So
yeah.
I became friends with him, and um I I like going into high school, I was like a little bit chubbier. I wasn't very fit. Um in middle school, I like gained some weight. And I got, I don't even want to, it's like not cringe to talk about it, but I did get bullied pretty hard for it. And when I tell people about it, like when I have told people stories about it, they were like, I didn't even know bullying like this existed. Because it's like movie style, like
Yeah,
what you see in movies. Like it was like the typical like, it was literally locker room like torment and
yeah,
like PE class torment.
yeah.
To where I was like my name in gym class was Marshmallow, and
Oh,
everybody called me Marshmallow.
yeah,
And like we were like it was bad. It was pretty funny looking back on it, but because like when I tell people the stories of it, they had no idea that it was that like that type of stuff happened. Like I used
yeah,
to get pushed on the track while like we would have to do a lap before we could play whatever sports we wanted.
yeah.
And they would like a group of guys would just come running behind me and just chase me and push me, and just be like, roll,
Oh,
marshmallow.
dude,
It's like,
that's brutal.
so
It's
it was,
funny looking back, but
I
not
have
when
to
you're in
laugh
it.
at it. I have to
Yeah,
laugh at it. Because that stuff, I'm like way over it now. I'm like not even, It's not like when I do a hard squat set, I think, oh, like what are you
You're
doing,
like,
guys?
fuck you, Dennis.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
who's the
Like it's not,
marshmallow now?
yeah, it's not like that at all
Yeah,
anymore. Like I'm not even like my laugh right now isn't to like cope. It's just like
right.
I actually am fully processed and resolved all of that. But yeah, it was really hard. Uh, and I hated the way I looked at a very young age. I used to have to bike to school during middle school, and I would sweat like crazy when I'd go to school. I mean, in South Florida, like it's always
Yeah.
hot around. And like I'd get into class and my first period class, I'm like all sweaty, and people were like, "Why are you so sweaty?" And I'm like, "I had to bike to school." And they're like, "Well, that guy biked to school. He's not as sweaty as you." And like all of that. And it was just like little things like that, like end up like I just would be I was very self-conscious. And I became friends with Chris around eighth grade because I was always like really good in my classes.
Mm,
I really liked math, and he was an athlete and he wanted to do good in his classes too. But he wasn't very smart.
mm,
He was smart, but okay, I shouldn't say he wasn't very smart. I personally think he was smart. He would tell me that he's not smart, but I think he is smart. It's just, some subjects are just easier for others than it is.
yeah.
And like I was really good at math, and I would just like it started our relationship, like friendship started as me just going over to help him with math stuff.
Mm,
And I remember like I walked into his house one day because he lived pretty close to me as well. Like he lived walking distance. I remember I walk into his house and I see this garage, and I'm like, "Whoa, what is this?" And he had like a power rack with with like a bar. He had like a bench. And I'm like, "Whoa, what the heck is this, dude?" Like, and he was like, "Oh, I lift in here." And I'm like, "You lift weights?" Like, I was like, he looked very fit as like an eighth, like ninth grade as fit as like an eighth or ninth grader could look, but
right.
he looked just like a par above everybody else. Like
Mm,
when you see an eighth or ninth grader with vascularity and some sort of delt, you're like, what
yeah.
is going on?
Yeah.
You're like, and he always just had ridiculous forearms. So that was
Yeah.
like his like calling card with baseball, being a baseball player. I mean, and just his genetics. It
Yeah.
was really his genetics. His forearms were about the same size as like his biceps and his
Yep.
shoulder.
Yep. Dude, as you're describing this, I can think of one kid from my middle school who was like that, in middle school and obviously stood out because people aren't
Oh
like that
yeah.
at middle school, say a baseball player, Grayson Lancaster, and his neck was like as thick as his skull, and
Yes,
just
bro.
like,
Yeah.
dude, and you're like looking at this guy's forms and it's, bro, you're 12 years old. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so clearly that he was a specimen and you could tell that he was doing something different.
Yeah. So him and I became very good friends. And um, I basically, I, we like almost kind of like struck a deal where it was like, he was like, I'll let you, like, we could work out together if you help me with math homework. And helping him with math homework was me just giving him answers, but
Yeah, yeah.
we'll make it sound better for the plot. But and his mom, his parents really liked me. His both his parents are Puerto Rican and my mom is Puerto Rican. So it was like we had a lot culturally in common, and just became like best friends with him. And my the way I looked at getting fit when I started is how a lot of young men look at getting fit when they get started. Is like, I just want to look good. I just want to look good to get girls,
Mm,
right? I had
yeah.
struggled with that super hard. Chris had no issues of like finding girls that
Mm,
liked him, and like being attractive. like a lot of girls found him attractive. And I always like was very, through middle school, very self-conscious. And as a lot of people naturally do when they're young men, is like, I want to start going to the gym so I can boost my confidence and hopefully
Yeah.
some girls like me, right? Typical segue. Um, I was super inconsistent because I hated lifting weights when I started. Um, and Chris was not very happy with that. So I remember one day specifically, I had like talked with him many times because, I helped him. I did teach him math. Like when it came down to, we had
Mm.
the same classes in high school. We have these times where it's like came down to like, oh, we got to do an exam. So I would like sit there and teach him math. And then with the lifting and like looking good and getting fit, he took it up on himself to train me because he had interest in like being a PT. Like his
Mm.
dream at that time, aside from baseball, was to be Athlean X.
That's what I
Like,
was about to say. I almost stopped you to guess that. Yeah.
yeah,
Dude, of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Show somebody some like twisting anti-rotational cable like crossover shit. Yeah.
Like do this 15-minute ab workout to get lower abs.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this workout is gonna give you a V cut,
Yeah. Right. Right.
right?
Yeah. The
So
15-minute workout is usually just throwing out everything in your pantry that's not chicken and vegetables. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
and maybe like low dose TRT like what he was
Sure.
on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or maybe not low dose, but whatever.
Yeah. Something exogenous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that was like our Bible, was like
Uh,
looking at Athlean X, and he's like, this guy knows everything. Like he's like, I want to be like him. He's like I don't know if Athlean X is like a PT.
I think
Um,
he was the trainer for an MLB team, actually.
yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
that's why he looked up to him a lot because
Yeah.
he wanted to be like that guy. So we religiously did workouts tailored to, what he did. And or he religiously did, I should say, not
Mm.
me. But I just followed everything he did, which ended up being like getting it from the source was that guy, Jeff.
Mm.
Um, but I remember I was super inconsistent. Like Chris would text me and be like, "Are you coming today?" And Chris was like a very unemotional person. That's the way
Mm.
he was. Very unemotional, like blunt, unemotional. If you text him something like if you wanted to get something out of him, like how it was for me sometimes, I didn't really feel like working out. So I'd be like, I don't really feel like go like he'd ask me, oh, are you coming to work out today? And I'm like, I don't really feel like going. He just would not respond. Right.
Yeah.
When in my back of my mind, I'm like hoping like, oh, I hope he asks me to come in. I'm like, I hope he like
Yeah.
says like, nah, you need like gives me some sort of
Right. Gives you some
motivation.
motivation. Yeah.
If he responded anything, it would just be like, you're a pussy. He said that a million times to me. He'd be
Uh-huh.
like, you're a pussy, you're a pussy, right? Like over and over. I remember getting those texts just with the word, just the singular word.
Just pussy.
And then yeah, and then one day he like told me he was like, I'm not gonna let you work out in my garage anymore bec because you're not serious about it. Like you want to work out, you say all these things about yourself that you hate, you don't like the way you look and that you want to get girls and you want to look like this certain way, but like you just come and work out for a week and then you don't do anything and then I have to
And you
like
don't
kind of
even draw the Sharpie on your muscle to show the muscle fibers like Athlean X.
yeah. Dude, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, well, I remember I was like super pissed when he said that. I was really mad. And then like it's because of like he would give me these workout plans. Like he would like tell me to run and I would run and like tell me to run a certain amount of miles and then do this sort of he gave me a whole workout split and I just would like kind of throw it away after I didn't feel motivated anymore
Yeah.
because I really, really didn't like it. I remember really hating working out.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you were motivated because you didn't like things about yourself instead of being motivated because you enjoyed the pursuit of like fitness or lifting.
Yeah,
And that I feel like that never is a sustainable source of motivation.
yeah. No, you're exactly right. Yeah, it just wasn't sustainable. The only thing that kept me going, and that kind of theme continued on and off throughout high school. So I would like go and work out with him sometimes and in his garage, and I just would like um it would be like on and off. And I would just really train with them as a group. Like it would be me, him, and like one or two other friends. And like that's what kept us. That probably the hottest streak of training I had in high school was when we would all train together.
Yeah.
And this was probably like junior year of high school, sophomore, junior year. Um, and I was in there pretty frequently. I mean, I would say at least like 4 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week. And I just would like follow whatever they did. I just it was a place for me to hang out with my
Mhm.
friends. That's really what it was. And I saw like some small gains here and there. Um, what dramatically changed my body composition in high school from being like a chubbier kind of kid was probably puberty a little bit. Like losing baby fat was a huge thing because like not only did my body composition change, but like my face changed. I started getting some mustache hairs, like all these things started changing, but then also like the mountain biking, like the trail
Yeah.
riding was just burned so much calories.
Yeah, and you probably weren't even thinking it was doing that when you were out there. It was just a thing you
Oh yeah,
enjoyed, So that's
exactly.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
real secret.
exactly right. I didn't do it to like get skinnier or anything. I mean, I just did it because I liked it. Um, and then I like lifting weights at that time though was like something it was more of like a chore.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, the result so that's like where I discovered lifting was with him. And I I pay a lot of credit to him. Because like when I was just speaking earlier about like getting back to my roots, I always think about training in that gym within his
Yeah,
garage because, you know, I still remember the way that he used to train. He used to squat, bench, and deadlift. Like he did all the powerlifting movements. He used to train really high intensity, like crazy high intensity. Um, and I used to look up to him for that. And there was a point somewhere in there where eventually, like, I started having fun, like working out.
yeah,
Um, it was still like I would do it with my friends, but there was a point, I don't have like a definitive moment where that just happened because I do think it happened over time. But it got to a point where I was like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm having fun lifting or like thinking about hitting arms today, right?
yeah,
The one thing I hated was how weak I was because like in every movement that I'd work out with them, I was significantly weaker. So I think like that sort of aspect kind of pushed me because I was like, I just want to get stronger, and keep up with these guys. But yeah, I eventually I started to like enjoy it. And then I remember like I think it was around like my senior year of high school. Um, I still kept training, trying to think. I was still mountain biking. Mountain biking was like my main focus. I didn't really like I was still training with them in the garage at times. And then sometimes we'd go to our like local center, like our gym center local. It wasn't like a commercial gym, it just was like the rec center for our community,
Mhm.
which wasn't even a it's just like a there's like a recreation center by where we live that they have like a pool, a racquetball court, and they have
Yeah.
like a small gym. But man, that gym was sick. Like
Yeah.
it was all they had like iron plates. They had like a really rinkety like squat rack. Like with the safeties like this because of how many times bars had
People
just
had dropped it.
bent.
Wow.
But the safety was like this thin. It was like
Okay. It was almost
a
like just the
thin
pin.
rod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had that, then they had like all the free weights, cable machines, and then they had like a T-bar row. They had a lot of like just classic equipment
Yeah.
that looking back on it now, I definitely almost like took for granted because like I crave finding those pieces of equipment at gyms now. I don't like really
Yeah.
the newer stuff
Really.
as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends. It definitely depends on what we're talking about. But 9 times out of 10, if I can go to a gym and it like there's some rust on it, like there's some rust on these
You're gonna be
machines, like
satisfied.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So sometimes we'd go to that little rec center, but I didn't really love it that much. And anyway, long story short, like um when I was going into college, so like when COVID was happening, like quarantine, whatever, uh my working out in high school where my motivation was like to get girls
Mhm.
unsuccessful, right? Like I had no romantic relationships in all of high school. And I was like, all right. Like that's it. Like when I go to college, I'm gonna like reinvent myself, right? Um, and I'm a little hesitant to go into details on this because I'm like, I don't openly talk about this very much, but let's just say, like, just for the sake of the video, like, I I had some very bad habits that I
Mhm.
needed to get rid of. Um, but I had built over high school that
Yeah.
involved it was just like typical like nothing crazy, but just
Yeah.
like I was like really, really riding this very up or I guess it was more so of like a downhill
Mhm.
valley, but I just was like digging myself into this very deep like hole where I just was like, I need to do something outside of this.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think
and I
there
like
was a
re
singular moment for you where you had that realization, or was more of like a gradual?
there was like this singular event where I was like, oh yeah, like I am numb to kind of everything. COVID happens, I'm getting ready to go to college, and I'm like, I'm gonna get in the best shape of my life so that when I go to school, I'm like, I just get a girl. Like just get a girl somewhere. I don't even care. I'm like, I just want some sort of like interaction with the female,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I struggled with that, and I remember training like really, really hard, like doing like these ridiculous core workouts to get abs. And I had like an 8 pack, like a really shredded, like
Oh, wow. So you got
core.
really lean.
Oh, dude, I mean this whole time that we're talking about this,
Oh,
I weighed like 135 pounds. As soon as I like started mountain biking and stuff, like I was really, really skinny. So I
yeah.
was like 135. Um, when I entered college, I was 135. When I moved to Tallahassee, and then like this is how like crazy my structure was, right? So I would have like only an hour and 15 minutes to work out because the leach had like this regulation due to
Oh,
COVID.
dude, I remember. That was when I
Yeah.
moved here for school. Yeah.
Oh, really?
That little
Yeah, yeah.
interval, and you had to sign up the day before on the app. Yeah.
So I was scared of working out in front of people. So I would go to the 5:45 slot, the 6:15. No, I think it started at 5:45. It was
Like the early
5:40.
one.
It was the earliest one possible. I think it was 6. It started
Okay.
at 6. It started at 6 and it went to 7:15. And I was like, okay, I would do that every day. And I had my friend Chris, the one that I worked out with in his garage, his brother was also really into training and all these things. And he like wrote me like a little split for powerlifting. We're like power building, right?
Yeah.
So it was like ridiculously high volume on all my lifts, as like most beginner programs look like. Just like 5x8
Oh,
deadlift,
okay.
ascending sets, like, but it worked crazy well for me.
Yeah.
He didn't charge me anything. It was just like he he did it for free because he at the time was like considering going into personal training and he was like, "Oh, I'll write this program for you."
Yeah.
So I remember waking up at 5:45 every day and like my brain, that was like the most fucked up my brain had ever been because I would like wake up, do that, and then like rest of my day, like it was like I earned the right to be a bum the rest of the day. And I felt so guilty. Like I would feel so guilty that I was like every day at night, I'd be like, I have to wake up at 5:45 and I have to go to the gym,
Yeah.
make to like cleanse myself, to like
Uh-huh.
feel better about myself. And then just every day doing the same thing. It just was like this cycle that was like the spring of 2021. And I remember telling myself, I'm like, when I was reaching the end of the spring, I'm like, I need to stop. Like this is becoming really bad. Um, Again, this whole time I'm like trying to find a girl that might like me, but it's like impossible because it's during COVID. I don't even have classes in person. I had like 2 classes in person every other week for like a lab. And like the like numbness thing didn't happen until right at the end of the spring. I remember this is a funny story. So I the entire spring semester I was like talking to some girl like that lived in Orlando that I just randomly saw on Instagram. Somebody I had like no connection with or something, right? And because of like this isolation and like this like box that I'm in, and like this is also like one of the first girls I could like talk to, I was like, oh my God, like I was just very excited about it. And it was like over a semester, very like shaky communication, ended up to like, oh, like let me meet you in Orlando and we could go on a date or something. And then she like gives me address and everything, and then as I'm getting to Orlando, just off the map ghost.
Oh
And I'm
man.
like, oh, like I was like super devastated, right? Oh my gosh, like I was like already just like at such like a peak of like chaos in my brain, and then when that happened, it immediately just like flipped a switch in my head, and I was like, I'm done. Like I'm just done with all this. Like I need to figure myself out. Um, it flipped a crazy switch on me to where that was just like a tipping event, right?
Mm.
Because it was like
Yeah.
it wasn't just that. Like I will never say it was like, oh, this girl didn't like me, so it made me change my life. Like hell no. That's not what happened. It was years of me just like not being very happy with my habits, who I was, um, not accepting who I was through my habits and um not being very like centered to myself. Um, and I just was like, okay, like at this point, like I had spent all that spring to keep the focus on like lifting too. I'd spent all that spring like lifting on a strict program, and I had made incredible progress as like a newbie gains. Like I was like, I remember my max went from like 315 to like 365 in like a month or like 2 months or something. And then I was hitting like 365 for like a triple or something. And then I hit like 385 at the end of the semester. The first time I went to CCB, um, was at the end of my spring. And I was like, oh, I want to go and like max out on the deadlift bar there. I was like, I want to go. Remember, I came in with my mask and everything because that's how everybody was going around. And I
Yeah.
walk in and like nobody is wearing anything.
Oh,
And the guy at the front at the time, he doesn't live there anymore, but this guy Ryan was like giving me these very funny looks. And I'm like, "Oh, like I want to work out here. Like, how do I get a day pass?" And he was like this like kind of snobby dude.
oh,
And he just was like, "Well, if you read the board, you might be able to figure it out." And I'm like, "Oh crap. I'm in
damn.
the wrong place." But
Yeah. Not very welcoming.
yeah, he was like this like snobby British dude.
Okay.
Um, but he didn't mean no harm. He just like that's just his personality.
Yeah.
Like in
Yeah.
hindsight. But anyway, like I remember maxing out there and I fell in love with lifting during that spring.
Yeah.
Um, I really like there was and what fueled me falling in love with lifting during that spring was falling in love with like seeing my body composition change.
Mm.
Because I was like 135. So working out after a week, you could see like a new striation.
Right.
And I could see like I remember thinking I was so big. I remember like taking these videos every day after training, I'd run home to still get a video of me with the pump.
Yeah.
And
Got to preserve the pump.
yeah. And I'd be like, holy crap, like I'm huge. Because I'm seeing my
Yeah.
muscles for the first
Yeah.
time. And it's funny to think that I thought I was really big. I remember seeing like 141, 142 at the end of the semester on the scale. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm huge. And I had a training partner this entire time. My friend Marco, he was my roommate and my training partner and my friend from back home. And he was part of that crew, like the small friend group I had that we
Mhm.
trained in the garage.
Yeah.
And we were very, very close. And we were both on this, like he trained a lot in high school too, but he was on the like David Lay, Dylan McKenna.
Okay. Yeah.
So he introduced me to like aesthetics, like
Yeah.
training for aesthetics and all these guys. And I used to that was where like I had that spring of 2021, I fell in love with training. And it was because of aesthetics. Like I thought it was really cool to be able to see the changes in my body happen, especially instantaneously. I mean, like
Yeah.
it was ridiculous, like how fast, I would do like a month of training and like the difference in my body was night and day, right? So I really fell in love with training then. And then, that event happened with that girl that made me change my life
Mhm.
outside of training. That's and like the habits
Yeah.
were building up to like a point where I was like, man, I do not like myself with this. I simply need to just stop.
I think it helped that you had found something that you were so invested in. You found that a new passion. Uh,
Yeah. And what really, really helped, which was like the time, these are like the kinds of things that the timing of things just like there's certain things in my life that have happened where, and I feel like every human may experience this, um, where it's just like, yeah, there's no explanation of how this timing worked, right? As
yeah,
soon as I let go of this like ego of mine that was like, because it literally felt like that part of my ego just died when I went all that way for like some girl that didn't even know me.
yeah,
We didn't even know each other, but I was like so desperate, right? When I let that when that died, like when I let go of that part of my ego of like trying so hard, I met my girlfriend that I have right now that we've been dating for 4 years. Like
yeah. I
that
mean, you
summer.
had to put yourself in a position to, I think, receive love. And I think the barrier was, like you said, an ego, and also coming from that same ego was like a lot of the kind of self-loathing. I think it's kind of the same spiral. So it sounds like, you know, you dissolved that, and then suddenly it's like you, stepped outside of the cardboard box you trapped yourself in or something.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. I mean, um, I was extremely like both of our timings when we found each other was pretty
Yeah.
miraculous. She was also in a point where she was kind of like done with other aspects of her life. Um, and I was done with like my stuff. And yeah, and I think we were both like very vulnerable. Um, and I remember like when we first met, it was just like hours upon hours and like it was absurd of just talking. And I feel like that is a common theme with a lot of long-term relationships that I may hear of that it's like when you first meet this person, it's like this overflow of talking. I was like in the first week of me meeting her, I was like talking about stuff I had never even thought of for
Yeah.
my entire life. But something between each other like had me opening up and confront. So through her was where I really confronted a lot of things in my life and where I really realized what I was running away from. Why I had all these bad habits was not just a it was not just simply because I wanted to be cool and wanted to be with my friends that were doing it, which is why I thought I was doing it. That's why I thought my problem arose from. Um, I had been like escaping some things in my family that I chose to not confront. That's like where when I talk about like my roots and like my center for training, it lies in not being, it's not about I look at it as it's not really being about like I was saying like earlier about hitting a certain number before I die or like um it's been like a process for me to um as it is for a lot, it's like an outlet. Um, I look at it as it's like an outlet for me to demonstrate my will, right? Um, like I I so I may not say like I'm like competitive or not. Like I don't like I'm not a competitive person, but I do take pride in the fact that I work hard for things. And I've learned to take pride in that recently, very recently in the past couple of months. I used to always kind of never acknowledge that with myself. But I I like looking at physique training and I like bodybuilding because it's like you're priding yourself in the effort that few like to take into account. And it's not about the effort of the gym either, because
No.
it's not,
24 hours a day, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's what I like really learned to take pride in is like, you know, I like bodybuilding now almost more than powerlifting because it's like it's a battle of your will forever,
Yeah.
all day. And like it's the decisions, it's the small, teeny little decisions between getting, grilled chicken at a restaurant or a pizza, you know,
Yeah.
like
Totally.
that shit adds up fucking big time. It adds up. Like those little decisions, and that's how habits are formed, you know. Um, and that's how like in my case, that's not how habits are broken, but it is over time because it was like a cold turkey thing for me. And I'm very fortunate that my girlfriend like recognized early on that I was like kind of getting away from a bad problem. And she had a lot of patience with me because I was a pretty bad person when I met her. Um, I like not an entirely bad person. I was just a bad boyfriend, I should say. Um,
Well, you didn't have any experience either. I think you had to
yeah,
learn, right?
yeah, in that aspect, yes. She had a lot of patience with me with that, but then I did things that were just straight up like mean. Because I
Okay.
was just like I was very like self-centered
Mm,
and I almost like believed that I really did think that I was like a perfect partner to be with
mm,
from the jump. I was like really in my head that I was like I'm a perfect person to be with. And like I was definitely not. And I was, like trying to stop myself from looping back into habits. I was breaking my bad habits as I started dating her. And it made it tremendously easier because like when I first started dating her, it was like I found myself from a long time ago.
mm.
Um, yeah, like I had never experienced that before where it was like holy crap, like I forgot about this part of me that somebody likes me for just who I am aside from
Yeah.
like a transactional relationship.
Mhm.
Um, and it was interesting. Like she had a lot of patience with me, as I was trying to kick those bad habits, and they just sometimes would come back and I'd leave her, I'd just like push her away.
Yeah.
And that's very frustrating as a partner to just get pushed away, especially at the beginning when things aren't like set in stone like that.
Yeah.
And you don't
And I
really know
think
each
a part
other.
of that is like you don't want them to see this part of you,
Hmm.
where it's like, I want to give myself permission to fall back into this habit, or not give myself permission, but like, I know this is happening, and so just don't come over here. I don't want you to help me
Yeah,
stop doing this. I just look away,
yeah,
so I think
exactly.
that's a very natural response.
Yeah, exactly. And then that fall, that was so fall of 2021 was when I joined CCB. Um, I had actually started going to a powerlifting gym that summer. So summer of 2021 in Broward. It's called Broward Barbell. It was a small ass gym. It was a warehouse. Like
Nice.
our next door neighbors were like welders.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and no, it was like there was an AC, but it didn't run. And it was like one ER rack. They had like these chrome Ivanko plates, super
Uh-huh.
old. Um, and a power bar. And I remember like when I started going there, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know a single person who powerlifted before I started powerlifting. I
Yeah.
didn't know anybody. Like I didn't meet somebody who was like, "Yo, come to this gym and powerlift here." I didn't meet anybody who powerlifted. I just was like, I remember I searched up on my phone Broward Bar like powerlifting gym, and
Yeah.
I went to Broward Barbell, and I couldn't find it because it was just a warehouse with no
Yeah, it's
sign.
hidden away. Yeah. Those are the best
And then I
gyms
just saw
though.
like I just remember sitting in the parking lot and I see like a freaking 300-pound dude walking out, and I'm like, oh, this has got to be where it is.
That's gotta be it. Yeah.
And I go up to him, I'm like, is this Broward Barbell? Can I work out here? He was like, sure. He was like, I don't run the place, so sure. And I was like nervous because like I didn't pay anybody to go in. I was like, I would call the number that's on the website, nobody answered. I'd leave voicemails, blah blah blah, nothing. But eventually I became a member. I got in contact with somebody. I remember my grandma. So I live when I'm at home, I live with my mom, my grandma. My grandma's 97, and my dad. And my grandma, like I've lived with my whole life. So she's like another mom to me. So I'm very close with my grandma. And she's like a mom, but also like a sibling, I would say. Because I didn't have like my brother is my half brother and he was 11 years older than me.
Lotto.
He was always away. He was
Yeah.
always away. And my mom didn't have full custody of him. She had partial, so he was always with his dad. And my grandma, like our rooms face each other, and I remember like I would, I'd spend a lot of time with her. Um, so yeah, I she actually paid for my membership to start going there. And um anyway, when I started powerlifting there, I was like, I had just learned hook grip because I lifted at like the rec center thing that I was talking to you about in my
Yeah.
local neighborhood, and like I couldn't use chalk, and I had just looked online and I saw hook grip as being a thing, and I just would use, and in leech. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I forgot to. I used to bring a backpack chalk bowl. Like I just had a
Oh
backpack.
wow. Yeah.
I just had a backpack that was a chalk bowl.
That's great.
And
Stashed away in disguise.
we would go at like 6 a.m., me and my friend, and like when we lifted, we'd be screaming and shit. And like the workers there were just they didn't even want to bother us.
Yeah.
They were like, holy crap, like let's not even get started with these guys because
Yeah.
I think that they didn't really care because they were students too. And I think that the manage because I started working at Leach like last year. I don't work there anymore, but I worked there for a year. And like that stuff could not fly. When I was working there, our manager was like way over us on that.
Yeah.
Like any sort of chalk, any sort of screaming. Boy, I was there. I guess they didn't really care. I mean, we would leave a mess, like
Yeah.
chalk all over the floor and everything. So anyway, I went back home. I couldn't use chalk in like my rec gym. They didn't have power bars, like, and I was like, I need to go to a powerlifting gym. So that's when I went to Broward Barbell. I just turned like I pulled like hook and sumo, and then I would bench suicide grip because I thought it was like better for my bench to bench
Okay.
suicide.
Interesting.
And I
Yeah.
remember the first powerlifter I ever met, which was the co-owner of that gym, he was like watching me bench and he was like, "Oh," he's like, he was just like a, like, I can't even better describe him more than like, he was just like a USAPL nerd prick.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, he was like, he's just like a lot of untested, or he's just very similar to a lot of tested lifters.
Sure.
The way he talks about stuff, he's like, so what? He was watching me bench. He was like, so you compete on on competing with people on steroids? And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, well, you should probably fix your grip before you should probably fix your grip on bench because only people who do steroids bench like that.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh nah, but like
because your blood pressure gets too high in your fingers, you can't close your hands, right, or something.
I
But
was
right,
like, no,
yeah, USPA thumbless. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, but like I was just like, oh, I think I'm stronger benching like this. And he was like, no, you're not. And he like kind of taught me, he showed me what powerlifting. I didn't even know what powerlifting was. I used to walk into the gym and they have on the on the wall, they have like a chart with
Mm.
the tape. They have tape on the bars, and it's like red tape is for this is for
Yeah.
deadlift bars. Blue tape is for squat bars. This tape is power bars. This
Mm.
tape is bench bar. Like they just had all this tape. And I'm like, well, I gotta follow what it says. So blue tape means I squat with that squat bar. I don't want to use a power bar for squat. Like I didn't know what it meant. I just went
Well, yeah,
in.
like what is the power bar for? You're supposed to eat
Yeah,
it? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
understand. I used to squat with the squat bar,
Uh,
60-pound squat bar, 135-pound frame, like thick ass knurling, like barefoot, shirtless, like for, like for months. I didn't even know that that bar was like a different thing, a different
yeah, yeah,
federation. I didn't even know the weight I was loading on it was 15 pounds more. Like,
yeah.
I was like, damn, that was when I started lifting with kilos, and I'm like, wow, people are right. Kilos
Or
do feel
harder.
heavier.
Well,
And
you had
that's
some
how
extra on there, yeah, that you didn't
yeah, and
know
that's how I
about. Yeah.
lifted forever, man. Like for
Wow.
not forever, for a summer. That's how I
Yeah.
started powerlifting. And I didn't have a program. Um, I just kind of did whatever I wanted to do. Um, I was like, I could get away with, maxing out frequently, like once a month, and it didn't
Yeah.
hurt me. Um, I was just so like skinny and frail though that like my my body's energy storage was terrible. Like I would work out and then just have to instantly go to sleep. Like I was so tired. I would eat food and then just pass out so I could have energy to do anything else. Um, and then yeah, like I started my fall and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to Capital City Barbell so I can work out at a powerlifting gym. And I mean, I mean, we definitely went into pretty good detail of like my strength origins there. My
Yeah, man.
strength,
And I mean, yeah, I do have to say, like, we've been going for over 3 hours. So, and
3 hours?
honestly, I got to get some protein. So, yeah, we should probably wrap it. I think three. Yeah,
Holy
because it's
crap.
coming up on one. Yeah, you weren't joking, man. That was really insightful. I might
Oh,
split
we're
it
gonna
into
have to
two
do a
parts.
part two.
I know. Yeah, yeah, because there's so much more
Dude,
there.
I
Yeah.
can't believe that I just did that for I'm like actually lost for words. Like that
Dude, it's
was
easy
three
to lose
hours.
track. That was a blast. It was a blast. Yeah, and I'd love to,
And
continue the conversation at another point. Before you jump out of here, you started a YouTube channel.
yeah,
Dude, great. I love the car talk thing you're doing. I mean, it
really?
really you're really introspective and super articulate, in kind of your thought process. And so yeah, I only watched the most recent one. But I want
Okay.
to go back and kind of go through. So do you want to plug that?
Yeah, sure. My I think my YouTube at is just my first name, Adesh, Adesh, and then Ramd, which is the first four of my last name. Um, yeah, I appreciate your input on that. You're the first person to give me feedback on my YouTube, so of like what you think of the videos.
Mm.
So that's like I really appreciate that. My mindset towards making the videos was like as like a video journal for myself. I didn't like I put it on my Instagram, like I'll say when I come out with the video, but I really don't expect people to sit and watch a 20-minute video.
Oh, dude, I put
Um,
it on when I'm doing cardio in the morning. I have like a whole
Nice.
playlist of YouTube videos, and it's just people training, and so that's like I have a time in my
Oh
day
yeah.
when I consume that kind of stuff. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I felt as we just did talking about stuff for 3 hours, which is still crazy.
oh,
And it's concerning because I have a lot of shit to do today
I'm
too.
sorry, man. Well, I'm
No,
sorry
no,
for
no,
keeping
no, no,
you up.
no, don't, dude, no. I went off more than I thought, but I as we just did talking about all this stuff, I feel like I have a lot to talk about with people, and like I've had really good conversations like how we're having right now. I mean, this is the best conversation I've had in a very long time. But I feel like I've had good conversations with people about training and like my philosophy and my why with certain things. And that's like the whole purpose of the channel is just to like try to get those thoughts out there. And it's really just for me to look back on years down the line. Like when I'm done powerlifting, I want to have as much data or have as much videos and log. I mean, that's why I started an Instagram purpose around it was just because like I still, you know, maybe every other week or every week I just go and I like to look at my old training and it keeps me centered. It keeps me at like my roots of like understanding my path through what I'm doing, right? Because you just get lost on the
Yeah.
way. Many times it's like you get really lost. So, um, and I mean, hopefully I'll see you at CC. Have you been training in the mornings?
Yeah,
Like,
it's still early. I was done at like 6:30 this morning, so
geez, dude, you're
get there.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if I could sleep later, I would. I just have to go to bed early because I know I'm gonna be up at 4. So anyway, but yeah, at
Okay.
maybe someday I'll get better sleep, and then I'll and then we'll run into each other.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right,
but all
man. Well,
right, man,
we'll keep in touch. All right.
sounds good.
All right.
All right,
Take care.
you too.